Again, I have Rick Tarot Fellow here to talk to, and I thought he was so interesting from last time. I wanted to keep talking to him and find out even more about him. And
Thank you.
and I thought I had a lot of good information from that video that you said that was I thought found interesting, but other people found it interesting too. So I thought let's do it again.
I love
Um,
it.
so um, I guess you had alluded to this last time. You had talked about spirit guides, and we didn't really talk about it too much, but I'm interested to know how you discovered that and how they help you do what you do as far as spiritual work.
Uh-huh. Well, that is a complicated question. However, and again, I said this in the last video, but I don't really expect people to follow my beliefs, right? To accept what I say is true. All I can say is what how I relate, I guess, to these things, and how I realize that they are probably visualizations or representations and not necessarily hard truth. So I just want to kind of preface everything I say tonight that if it conflicts with somebody's beliefs, I don't want anybody to change their mind. But um, for me, there are kind of groups, or I guess groups is probably the best way to say it, of spiritual entities, right? There are ancestors, there are spirit guides, there are other working spirits. Um, you could probably say, as we kind of talked about last time, that there are angels, which are just a kind of spiritual entity or a classification of spiritual entity. So I view spirit guides in kind of the same thread. It's a classification of a specific kind of working spirit. Um, I do believe that everybody has them. We all have spiritual teams that are made up of guides or ancestors or angels or all of the above, right? But guides have this kind of specific role, this charter to help us realize the life plans and the goals that we came here to experience and to learn. Um, and this is where we get a little conflicting, but I believe that your guides have been with you from birth and will be until death, and that they have that um, requirement that they're there for you through your whole path. And so I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, my grandpa, who I really loved, passed away when I was 7, and now he's one of my spirit guides." And I don't disagree that your grandpa's there and helping, but I would view him as more of an ancestor, but somebody who might be in a working role, but he's not going to be a guide because he wasn't there from your birth. And so that's kind of my understanding that they have given me. But again, I understand it's siloed to my truth and my experiences.
So when people say, I have a guardian angel and they've saved me from, a car accident, or um, I was stranded on the side of a road and a stranger came along and helped me out, and then, they left and nobody saw them or something. What do you think of someone who says that?
I'm inclined to believe their experience. Uh, was it a guide versus an angel versus a stranger on the street? I don't know that it matters. Somebody saved them, somebody put them in that path, somehow that was orchestrated on their behalf. And how that was orchestrated and who actually did the work, could have been influenced by their guides to other guides to a physical person. Maybe it was a guide going to an angel, or right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's I'm inclined to say yeah.
Okay. You said you were raised Mormon in the Mormon
Mhm.
church. When did your spiritual thinking change? I'm sure it's been a gradual build, accumulation of things, but when did it start to change for you? What was there something that happened to you, or something that really made you think differently?
It's interesting. I had experiences when I was younger. Our house where I grew up had activity. And when I was 8 years old, I had a nightmare that I woke up from, and there was a man standing at the foot of my bed. And I started screaming bloody murder. My mom came running with a gun. My dad was in Kuwait, I think, at the time with the military. Um, and my mom was telling me, it's just a bad dream. It's just a bad dream. But then my little sister, who was 5 at the time, ran into the room and she said, "No, Mom, I saw a man running from Rick's room." So my mom searched the house with that gun that night, thinking that there was an intruder. And then a few, I don't know, days or weeks, time, don't remember. um, we kind of sat down as a family and talked about this other family that lived in our house. And we had all had experiences, um, but we had never talked about it. And my mom was trying to, protect us from that, from the fear of the ghosts, right? Um, but it was really kind of an eye-opening experience for me to have had something so memorable that I can still today recall. And most members of the Mormon Church, and I didn't know this until I was older, believe that any sort of spiritual contact that doesn't come from just the Holy Spirit, right, is demonic. And I was never raised that way because my mom never believed that because she had experiences of her own. But that was kind of the first time where I realized there's some flexibility even within the religious structure to teach or have different views on that kind of thing. Um, so I guess you could say I've always been very spiritually inclined. It just wasn't until later where that no longer fit into the religious box.
Hmm. Do you think you've been accumulating your beliefs over a period of time? And do you think they're still evolving?
I do, and I think they will. And there's, if anything, just examples of constant change. I do think that there are certain set patterns, certain ceremonies, like we talked about last time too, that will be a part of my life and a basis for things, and a basis for that growth. Um, Although I'm not afraid to say that those will progress out of my life at some time. I'm not afraid to let go of those beliefs, like I maybe had been in the past with the religious beliefs, right?
Mhm. I mean, well, you did I guess I'm assuming that you let most of the Mormon belief, go. Go.
Yeah,
It's
but
go.
that was a process, a painful one. That was hard. It was scary when you're threatened with hellfire and damnation, and you based your beliefs on heaven and hell. So
Hmm. So this gets in sort of like the next talking point. Why do you think so many, it seems like a lot of gay men and lesbian women are attracted to alternative religions, like defining their own spirituality, or maybe a new age Wiccan, um, you know, belief system? What do you think about that?
um, I think that, especially in Western civilization, we're raised almost exclusively with some idea of Christianity, right? And the majority of the Christian faiths have this idea that homosexuality is sinful. And I think that it doesn't make sense for LGBT people to be told or buy into a form of spirituality that in the end rewards them with something that they never wanted anyway. And that would be, cured of your homosexuality. And in the Mormon faith, that happens to be marriage, godhood, populating worlds with children in a very heteronormative way.
Mhm.
And for me, that's what it really came down to was I wasn't really able to let go of those beliefs until I acknowledged that there was no place for me, even in heaven, to be authentic. And I think that people seek out authenticity. They want to be who they are. They want to be true to their alignment.
Mhm.
And you find these people, these protesters, these people who are telling you you're sinful. But I never really felt, at least personally, like those people really cared about salvation of my soul. They didn't see me as somebody who deserved saving. And to me, that's really hypocritical
Mhm.
to proclaim this belief that the sacrifice of Christ was great enough for murderers and adulterers, but not for homosexuals. Like that just doesn't make sense. And I think it's a lack of faith.
Yeah, I think that a lot of gay people are just so mistrusting of religion, um, especially Christian. From my experience, they just, and I've seen, firsthand experience of people struggling like this inner conflict, and it can really do some damage. Um, where you struggle with it, and then like I know somebody who, he still sleeps with a Bible beside his bed and he reads from it because that's how he was raised.
Mhm.
Um, he's been in a relationship for nearly 20 years with a guy. I've known students that their family's very religious and especially Catholic, and
Mhm.
they feel like if they were to come out to their family, that would be like the end of everything. Like they'd be kicked out. They lose their family, and they struggle with that. This sort of silent struggle, and they seek out people to talk to and kind of feel it out at first. Like I'm thinking this, but I don't know. And I've met students that um, you can tell there's something going on, but they don't want to admit to it. Even if it's just curiosity, they can't even entertain, you know, anything homosexual to them because it would be, um, sinful. Or maybe even society looks down upon that, and they're just, they feel like they'll be a pariah, in their circle of
Right.
people, friends, and family. Um, Everybody's all over the place. I didn't come out until I was about 18. I think the internet really helped me talk to people and kind of figure things out. And um, this was like 97. And I'm online and chatting with people, and some people were just very out and open. And I was like, you know. Um, and then later that, I think it was 98, I came out to my mother, and she was like, this is not, this is against the Bible. She wasn't even a church person. She never went to church. She just was just saying stuff. And her whole relationship with me changed. Like she wouldn't drink after me, like, pick up a glass or something, or just kind of gross anyway when you're a teen. Um, but she would almost like not include me in things, which I feel some of that was also me getting older and still being in the house. But it was her whole attitude changed. And when I came out to her and I said, it's I'm still the same person. I still love you the same. Um, she wouldn't let me like hug her or touch her or anything. It was pretty rough. It's something you won't forget.
Yeah.
Um, and my father, I told him a few years later, he was like, I don't care. I still love you. You're
Wow.
still the same person because my parents had separated. So, yeah, he didn't care one way or the other, um, which was really nice. I mean, he was pretty open minded anyway. Um, but
I,
it's, it, oh, go on.
no, I was just going to say, I also experienced those kinds of things. Definitely had struggles in my family. I've kind of harped on them for years and years and years, and I really appreciate like the distance that my family has come. I'm sure, I hope that yours has too. But my mom said something to me on this subject once that I found really profound. She said, "Hey, Rick, when did you know you were gay?" And I said, "I was 12 when I used it to describe myself for the first time, right? In the mirror, very timidly, like, oh my gosh, I'm gay, right?" And she goes, "Okay, and you came out, I was 23."
Mhm.
So she said, you had 11 years of trying to figure this out and not telling anybody and being ashamed of it and being, hiding these things. And she goes, and I'm really, really sorry that you went through that and nobody knew. She goes, but I've known now for 6 months. Can you give me the
Oh,
time to adjust like you had the time to adjust, right? And it's not going to take me 11 years, but I just need some time to you know, re-envision my life for you. Um, and I found that really interesting from the parents' perspective, right? Of, it's okay for people to take time to grieve, to mourn the lives that they envision for their children, as long as they are replaced with just as good things that look just a little different, right? Um, because we take that time for ourselves very often siloed and alone, right? Which is horrible. But
it is pretty bad. I mean, my teenage years, I was withdrawn, depressed, no friends, um, just withdrawn. And I don't think my mother or my stepfather I don't think they really cared or understood things like what I was going through. I mean, I remember like, oh my God, it's crazy. Like, even being like 6 years old and like taking a bath with my male cousin and like being curious. It's something, just like, oh my God.
right,
Um, it just instances. I mean, um, I was like, I could have been 12, 13, something like that. Like I had fantasies of like just having sleepovers with certain friends and like snuggling with them. Nothing sexual, but it was just, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? This is how my feelings are developing. And, sometimes I gave myself a headache thinking about like, no, this can't be, this isn't,
mm-hmm.
what is this? Because I didn't know anybody um, really that was gay in my small town. And later on, people that were talked about were like completely, they were humiliating to
Right,
be seen around, or they were completely made fun of, or were completely never taken seriously, thought to be completely unhappy, um, disgusting, um, outcast, or um, yeah, and to see that was really difficult. And some of my first exposure was like MTV, like The Real World,
right,
like the first season. I would watch it in like this strange, the character Norman, the guy Norman, was like the first real gay person I had ever like you know watched their mannerisms and how they talked. And I was disgusted, really. I'm like, what? This is, oh my God, no, no. no, no, and I look back, I watch some of the episodes now, and I'm like, there's nothing. Why did I think that? That's normal. He's normal. There's nothing wrong with him. Um, and it's strange to see that like after the fact. And it's like I remember watching that and being like, it's almost like watching a car wreck. You can't take your eyes off of it. But now it's like, why? I guess I was just thinking, feeling, trying to figure out um, myself or trying to see myself
Mhm.
in that character, and I just couldn't do it at that time. So, I had like a best friend for like a summer that I pushed the boundaries, like, you know, I would say stuff like, "Oh, I love hanging out with you." He's like, "Oh, I like it too." I say, "No, but I love hanging out with you." He's like, "Okay,"
Good,
and it
yeah.
was a straight kid who, I think he was a year younger than me, but it was almost like I was cutting my teeth on trying to figure out how to
How
act.
that interaction goes. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And then I just got tired of him because I don't know. He ended up moving away. But I still remember him, and he, he didn't have a clue, but I had feelings for him, and I wrote them down, and I kept like a little journal and would make stuff up, and um, yeah. But it was like, and then spiritually religious, we never went to church. I only went to church with my grandmother when I went to visit, and that was Catholic.
Mhm.
Um, I went to a Baptist church a few times, but oof, they're kind of scary. Um, Especially Southern Baptists, they're pretty scary.
Yeah.
And
I think.
the way, and with my grandmother, and I still believe this, uh, she was a very devout Catholic. She went to confession, she went to church, she went to midnight mass, she did all this stuff. Um, for her, religion was a very private thing. You do not talk about it outside of the family or outside of church. That's
Mhm.
just it's it's a personal thing. And she explained to me, she's since passed, but she had the most interesting advice for me. And um, she would say stuff like, if you need the church, it's a family for you if you need it, but not everybody needs it. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
okay. And then she'd say, when that someone special comes along, you'll know. You'll know. She didn't say woman or man or whatever. She's like, when that someone special comes along, you'll know. Um, and she would say stuff like, I don't know. She just had these little things that would poke through. Like I showed her my tarot deck when I was like, I was 13 or something. And I thought, oh no, she's not going to like this. She loved it. She thought, oh, this is a game. I said, yeah, it's a game. Let's play with it. And I pretended like I was reading her fortune, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know anything. Um, but I still have that deck, and
Wow.
she loved it. She's like, "Oh, this is neat. Well, look at all the pictures on the cards." She didn't say it was a tool of the devil, or it was. She never talked like that.
Mhm.
So spiritually, I'm still evolving my own spirituality. I feel like I've been stunted for so long, and I'm still trying to figure out what works for me. And I think for me, it's a very private thing. You can talk about it to people if you're talking about it, but not like
Right.
proselytizing or pushing it on somebody. That completely disgusts me. I don't like that. I see that a lot at at the university I work at. You have these groups of wacky Christians that actually will pursue students and like, you know, feed them stuff, and then, oh, come on, we're having a get together, and try to change their beliefs. And the goal is like for them to see the benefits of how wonderful marriage is, and oh, just
Yeah.
gross
Yeah.
stuff like that. I can't stand that, and that really turns me off to organized religion, um, because of.
Although I do have to be fair because I know that there are Christians watching this that are going to say like, no, that's not me, and I know
Yeah,
that
there's
we're not
it,
talking about you, right? There are good people who are in alignment everywhere. There are gay Christians, right? There
Yes.
are like, yes.
I
Yeah.
went to once I went to a Universal Unitarian church in Norfolk, and it was, I mean, the um, preacher was a lesbian, and they sang pop songs
Oh, wow.
as, as like, but they were like folksy pop songs. Um, and they were really, it was a strange mix of people, but in Norfolk, they were dealing with one of their parishioners had died of AIDS, and they were doing like a memorial for him. And after, service, they all went out to like IHOP and had a big breakfast, and that sort of family atmosphere was kind of nice, but it was a bunch of everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
all different types of people. I swear there were some straight people there that just liked it because it was just so contemporary, um, and um, positive. But again, it's a little too organized for me. It was very interesting, and I thought it was very open, but it seemed to be very like, I don't know. I don't know. It was nice, but again, it was just probably the most liberal type of Christianity I've ever witnessed in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Taking one of the songs I remember they were singing was, "If you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with." And I'm like, what is
Wow.
this? This Sunday, I cheated on my significant other with someone at the club. What is
Oh,
this?
God.
It was, and there was like this old guy with this young guy. I couldn't figure out if it was father and son or whatever. And then they started rubbing each other, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting people. Um, it, it- yeah, but yeah, that was religion. But I think that if gay people have found uh, a slot of Christianity to go to if they feel that's their beliefs, because
Mhm.
there's universal Unitarian pretty much everywhere now. It didn't used to be.
Right.
There's one here in Newport News. There's one in Norfolk. Most major cities have at least one. They may not have their own building, but they may be, somewhere else
Mhm.
meeting. But it's interesting. I'm sure you have one near you.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have a really big Episcopal church too, which is also accepting, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we
yeah.
have we have a one on the one on the peninsula where I am. The Episcopal Church was the first to conduct a gay marriage ceremony.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which was, you know, and they actually for Pride Month they actually have like these rainbow doors they put out in front of the church
Hmm.
saying all are welcome. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
That we have um, the area that I'm in, we have like church streets, and it's like six different churches on a street, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's they're
I think
everywhere.
that's cool. Like, I love churches. I love visiting churches. I don't have to agree with them to
Mhm.
appreciate not only the structure, but like the structure of the religion, the structure of the building. Like, there's a lot that I find very beautiful. You were talking about your friend, who still sleeps with the Bible next to his bed. I still have mine. I actually really like reading the stories. They're not all hunky dory, wonderful stories, and my
I,
favorites are definitely not the most positive ones. but,
I
but
only like the New Testament.
oh, really? See, I'm an Old Testament
Oh
fan.
no. Mm.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, for literature class, we had to read like the Book of Job, you know,
uh,
and but the New Testament, I think the Gospels are very, very interesting. Um, I have I like the New International Version, but there is a new translation that I got um, a few years ago, just of the New Testament, and it was freshly translated from, I think, the Greek,
mhm.
and there were some changes, and I really like that. Sort of different flavors, but I think someone from Harvard was the one that, or Yale, translated it, and the wording, some of the words that were sort of obscure or had a lot of meanings, they kind of settled on better choices.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
More suited
King,
to today's language.
Yeah, the King James version is just can't read.
Yeah,
We don't talk like that anymore.
no,
Um, so the New International Version is probably one of my favorites. But again, I can't read the Old Testament. It's just I don't know. I don't.
there's
I
a
get
story.
the whole concept of like God is this sort of um, playing puppets with people and killing people just willy nilly. I don't understand that,
Yeah.
uh, and I just don't. I don't know. It's just really that is one of my sticking points. Like the New Testament and the Old Testament can be completely different gods in each one. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, the benevolent God and then the vicious. You know,
Yeah.
love me died God.
Yeah. Right. I do think that part of my, we talked last time about how I write dark fantasy, and so there's
Mhm.
kind of a little bit of that horror element that I appreciate and that I used as a coping mechanism as a kid, right, or as a teenager. So that's why I think that I appreciate the Old Testament. But there are also just some really incredible gems in there that have nothing to do with that. My favorite book is Nehemiah and the story of him rebuilding the wall and the idea that all of these people that were helping build this wall to protect the city of Jerusalem had their place, and that place meant something, and that their task, the things that they were good at, their talents, right, that were being used for this wall were useful to God. And for me, that really made me feel, as a
Mhm.
gay teenager, that my gifts, that gay thing, you know, um, had value to build this kingdom wall, right? And that I had a place in that line, even though I didn't look like or feel like everybody else. And that was one of the stories that really,
Hmm.
um, I still to this day, you know, draw strength from, I guess. So,
Yeah, I turn to like literature. So I have my favorite books.
mhm,
Like yesterday I published it since it's like banned. Last week was banned book week, and I my library doesn't really do anything. We're academic. We're not like public or anything. But I put pictures of my top four favorite books, and some of those I've gone to and just picked up in the middle and just read because I find them comforting, and some of the parts in them I find work for me,
mhm,
like as much as a Bible would or
right.
someone, you know. Whether it's Dandelion Wine, which I love Ray Bradbury, you
Mhm,
know, it's just, I mean, his books, it's just calms you. It just makes you feel it's small town, identify with that. And then, unusual characters that really, they're not really that unusual. They just seem, or the bell jar if you're dealing with depression. Of course, it ends, you get better at the end, but one of the friends dies of suicide. But I like that book because it's sort of like a coming of age story dealing with depression and dealing with feeling like you're a burden to everyone as well as yourself. And
mhm.
what do you do about that? So, so I did that. And I usually, um, my favorite books change sometimes, you know, the, the ones I like. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, it is October.
It is.
What do you do anything special for Halloween as far as like um, decorate or a party or anything?
I'm a big fan of decorating, so I do decorate. Again, I don't really follow traditional ceremonial things for the time of the year. I don't follow a particular calendar, in this that ceremonial space. I am pretty busy always in October. People want to book readings, and groups in particular seem to really pick up this time of year. Um, and so I kind of leave the space for that. And then I
Mhm.
actually really just enjoy Halloween night, being at home and handing out candy. So I'm
Mhm.
pretty boring that way. Um, but our neighborhood does a big thing. I guess we'll see. That will be the weekend before Halloween. see how that goes. But yeah, I haven't. I used to attend a lot of parties,
Hmm.
but then I started working the parties. So now it always seems to be kind of this work related thing for me. But that
As a
works.
business
It gives me,
answer.
yeah. Um, so I don't do anything special unless I'm told to, I guess, and I haven't been told to yet. So.
You didn't catch what I said.
Oh no, sorry. What'd you
I
say?
said you do the parties, but you were a go-go dancer.
Oh yeah. See,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah,
Yeah. Got my tarot cards strategically placed.
yes.
That's
But would you people would ask for readings,
uh-huh. Yeah.
and what I'm kind of weird when people ask for readings. I usually say no.
Oh really?
Yeah, unless I, it's almost like I feel like you think it's silly or funny. Like you just want it, and I'm like, I don't want to. I take tarot a little more seriously than that, as far as not like it's do or die, but like I really don't feel like I think it loses the effect if you just say, "Oh, I'm having boyfriend problems. Can you got cards on you, don't you?" No, I just
Yeah. And
and plus,
there is to kind of feed into that a little bit. There are many times where you're kind of a prop at a group
yeah, I
during
don't.
Halloween, right? And that is something that I've tried to balance. But my problem is it doesn't matter if it's supposed to be like this really jovial event. I'm gonna read you like I would normally read somebody,
Mhm.
right? And when yeah, the there was one experience where I was at a Halloween party and the poor woman was so upset after our reading she had to leave.
Nope.
And they like all the people that were hosting the party still talk about that to this
Oh
day.
no.
And it made me feel kind of bad, but at the same time, it's like you came and sat in front of me, like, and you said you wanted a reading, and I gave you a reading. Um,
I feel like I can't concentrate. Like there's too much static. I can't think if there's too many people around. I can't
y-
get clarity.
a lot of readers have actually asked me a question about that because yes, I do events. Yes, I'll read groups, right? And in the beginning, it really was like by the end of the night, you could just feel pressure in the room, right? It felt heavy, it felt hot, it felt, um, and like energetically, how do you cleanse? How do you not get tired, right? Those are questions that we get quite a bit, even from very experienced readers. Um, and I did have kind of a moment where I was really tired before a reading, and I said, kind of in my opening offerings, I'm like, you guys are going to have to do the work because I am just exhausted and I don't feel like I can cancel. I don't feel like I should be canceling, but at the same time, I can't put all this energy into it. And my guide kind of responded and she was like, that's how it should always be. We'll do the work. We'll come to you. We'll cross the divide. You shouldn't be paying, right, your own or expending your own energy to like force the universe to do these things. Um, and so now, every time I sit down to read, it's like I have now set the expectation that they will do the work. And
Hmm.
I'll just that little shift in thinking has completely changed uh, how long I can read, who I can read for, and where I can read. Um, and I don't know why, but I think I was just pouring myself into the reading so much, and now it's like it's not my responsibility, right? My responsibility is to translate.
Hmm.
So,
You offer cleansing services,
mhm.
and we talked a little bit about it last time, but not much. Um, so take me through. Okay, someone. How first of all, how would someone approach you, and what would you do, and what's the process for you? So if someone contacted you and said, "Oh, you got to help me. There's something going on. It could be, it feels like it's around me. It's in my house, but it feels like it follows me to work." What would you do? Take me through that.
So it always starts with me taking time to sit with that person in mind, kind of in my own meditation, in my own safe space, right, with my own spirit team. And it really does feel almost like a work meeting, where we talk about what's going on, and we talk about what's really going on, right? And we talk about how that's manifesting. Um, and then usually I'm given some sort of method or prescription almost to solve the issue. And it's a, it's for me very ceremonial. I definitely prefer to go physically to the place where the problem is happening, right? To open a ceremony there, to make offerings there, and to invite whatever is there to tell me their story, right? Um, that's usually all that it takes. But sometimes it's more work. I had one person who came to me for a reading once, and she said, "I've got this spirit. I don't know what's going on." She didn't want me, like, it wasn't, it's in my home. She's like, it's attached to me. And it took me a couple of days where I would just get glimpses here and there, and I'd have to write it down, right? And then I put the story together for her, and I said, "This is what I feel is going on." And then it's like, "Oh yeah, that, yes, it matches," or "No, that doesn't." It matched. um, but then working through that process and overcoming that usually has to do with some sort of um, attachment to something negative that has happened. Well, the ones that are more negative presenting, right, are usually feeding off of some sort of negative attachment or negative emotion or trauma that needs to be worked through, or something to that effect. Um, I can tell you a story if you want.
Sure.
Uh, um, this is one that still really sticks out to me because it was somebody very close to me. I'm going to be very careful to not
Okay.
reveal too much about who they are and what was going on, but try to give you the details that I can, right? Um, I was traveling for work. I had to fly back to Salt Lake City. I was living in Tampa at the time, so this was a couple of years ago before we went to Costa Rica. Um, and I was sitting in the airport, and I got a text message that said, "There's something in my house. Can you help me figure out what it is?" And the timing was just hilarious because it was like 10 minutes and I was going to be getting on the plane to Salt Lake. And so my response was, "Just so happens I'm flying to you." like just the timing of that was just crazy. Um, and I got on the plane, and I was flying to Salt Lake, and I figured I've got all this time on the plane. I might as well kind of get into that space, do a little meditation on this, and figure out what's going on. And the seat next to me was empty, but it didn't feel like it was empty for long. I felt like there was somebody else sitting there. And he starts telling me his life story. Um, you know, how he died, what kind of life that he lived, why he feels stuck, and why he happens to be in this house, right? And I'm going through going, "This is really good stuff. This is really good stuff." And I'm like, "Are you ready to move on? If we resolve some of these things and we find these answers, are you willing to leave?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yes, but what are you going to do about the other one?" And I'm like, "That's ominous," right? Uh, and so I'm like, "Well, that doesn't feel good. Um, that feels a lot more negative, I guess. Vibrationally, it was a much lower vibration." And I kept trying to get some sort of information on this thing. Um, and it never happened. Well, I mean, it eventually did, but not during the flight. Um, so the day comes. I've got this little ceremony prepared where I'm intending to sort of help this spirit move on, cross over, however you want to describe it, right? Um, Particularly, he had some things about his daughter and his premature death. It was a work accident that killed him um, on the land where the home was built. And I thought that that was awfully, what's the word? Too easy, almost. like, uh, but I did find out that there were mines in the area, and that kind of went along with what he was telling me. And so I went to the house, and something really weird happened. I have another medium friend who literally just showed up. I had no idea she was going to be there. I had no idea she was coming. Um, but I was like, well, I'm about to do this house cleansing thing. Do you want to stay for it? And she was like, okay. So we went down and started the ceremony. And she wrote down, we were sitting in silence, and she wrote down the things that she was hearing him say. And one of the things that I really love doing with this work is the comparing and the overlaps, right? The validation that like it's going to be really challenging to believe that two people can make up seeing, feeling, or hearing the same things, right? And especially when they're written down totally separate from each other in completely separate different days, right? But she felt the same thing. He kind of felt like he was being crushed under some sort of big boulder or something in this dark cave. And of course I'm like miner and mining accident. Um, and that was just this like really incredible, beautiful experience. And in the end, like we both just felt really good about it. And then I went upstairs and I told this friend of mine, I said, I don't know what this thing really is, but it's doing nothing but playing to fears that it thinks I might have. Like I'd walk around the corner and see like Freddy Krueger arm around the door. And I'm like, well, I know it's not Freddy Krueger, right? That's a total fictional character, right? But somehow or another, he's thinking that's gonna scare me, like, and stop me from poking. Um, but I kind of started the same thing. Let's have a conversation. What's going on with you? What brought you here? And it got dark and it got ugly. Um, and it got, I can't even explain it. I mean, things weren't flying off the walls. Like it wasn't like the movies, right? But it sure feels from an emotional and mental standpoint that that's what's going on. And this medium friend of mine was writing down a bunch, and I felt my guide cover my ears as I was doing this, and I had no idea why. Um, but later on, this other medium friend of mine was like, weren't you afraid of what he was screaming at you? And I'm like, I didn't hear anything. And she showed me her notes, and it was like, I'm gonna slit your throat in your sleep. I'm gonna whatever, whatever, whatever. Like these really crazy kind of threats. Um, Long story short, we did end up getting it out of the house, but it was too angry to cross over. But it became very, very clear that it was a human spirit with all of these anger issues, right? And something had to have linked that anger and that dark kind of vibration to the house. And as I pushed the spirit out of the house, kind of for the last hurrah, I guess you can say, I did hear it yell at me. And it said the name of the homeowner. That person will bring me back.
Mm.
And I went, well, that's interesting. So after all this was done, we regathered the homeowners and I asked the guy, I said, what is it that you have in the home that has brought something so violent and angry? What have you channeled your anger into that you actually have still in the house? And he told me, and I won't give you details, but it was pretty crazy. Pretty, well, not crazy. It was his outlet, right? It was a way for him to channel kind of some of those darker tendencies that humans have, right, into something. And I'm like, this thing told me that it's coming back because that's here. So if you want it gone, then you need to get rid of that, you know.
An
And
object, a book,
huh?
an object, a book.
It was written stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. And he did that and he got rid of it. And um, like I'm still really close to that family and those people, and I hear about it a lot, and I hear about their experiences since then. Um, and it's interesting to see how the wife changed, not being afraid of her own house, and how he letting go of the anger has changed, right? And the just really incredible family structure that they now have. Um, and I'm not saying that that was impossible for them to have before, right? Or that it wouldn't have led here anyway, but it's just been really beautiful to watch them grow too. Um, and to have had that contact with them after the fact. Um, this is definitely a part of the work that requires me to have that lack of fear, that
Mhm.
that ability to work at that lower vibrational place. Everybody wants to talk about high vibes and love and love and light, right? But the fact is, the things, and this comes back to even the religious
Mhm.
subjects, right? The people that need the help are not the ones who are high vibing light love people. Like the angels don't need us to do their work for them, right? They need us to help these lower vibrational things to progress to higher vibrations, right? Um, and to me, that's part of this work. And I think it is a part that a lot of people shy away from.
Hmm.
That's my story.
That's interesting. Um, wow. Um, well, let's lighten it up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
um,
Take off our
that's
shirts.
fine.
Just kidding.
That was a good story. So, since it's Halloween, do you have any favorite movies, horror or otherwise, that you like to watch around like this time of year?
Oh, I don't really have any that I repeat, but I do have, like, I don't have a tradition of watching
Yeah.
certain Halloween movies, but I definitely do take some time to watch Halloween themed shows. Like I just finished Midnight Mass on Netflix, right?
Mhm.
Um, that was, I thought, quite well done. Um, I love even, Hocus Pocus. How can you not as a little gay boy? But, that's a fun movie. Um, Traditionally, no, though. Can't say that I will sit down and watch any particular movie this Halloween season.
Do you like horror movies?
I do. Yeah. I used to
What's
like them more. Now I'm a little more sensitive. So,
what's like your top, not in any order, but what are some of your top horror movies?
I love the Insidious series.
Really?
Uh, and the scariest movie I think I've ever seen was The Strangers. That was the movie that gave me nightmares, as an adult. So,
It's done well. Yeah. I watched The Strangers They Come at Night. I didn't like it.
yeah, I didn't like, yeah, I
They
wasn't as impressed or scared with the follow-up ones for sure. I thought I would be, but yeah.
they had a few jump scares, but they were like ones you anticipate.
Hmm.
The Strangers was like, what the hell's standing there? What is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is that? Because you had no idea. Um, I'm kind of traditional with horror movies. I love The Exorcist.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother took me to see The Exorcist 3 in the movie theater, and I was way
Oh,
too young to see it.
oh, nice.
I love that movie. I love it. It's great.
Yep.
Um, if you haven't read the book it's based on called Legion, it's quite good. It's more
I
like a
haven't.
philosophy. Have you read
Yeah.
it?
Uh-uh.
Oh, it's William Peter Blatty, and it's basically a Christian cop detective and a rabbi, a Jewish um, well, the detective's Jewish, and the he talks to a Catholic priest, and so they're talking about things that don't make sense in religion. All the while, there's a serial killer imitating a serial killer that has been captured and put to death, but they don't know why.
Mm,
Is there a repeat? What's happening? So it's a lot. It's done well. Um, the book is great. The movie is pretty good. It's pretty creepy. Of course, it's got some silly stuff in it.
I always do, yeah. I'll have to read it. That does actually sound really good.
It's a good. I read the Exorcist, the book. That's pretty good. But Legion, it's like more philosophical,
Hmm.
just talking about Judaism and Christianity and things that just don't make sense. But do you believe in demons and Jewish guys like I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's good. Quick read too. It's not too heavy. It's quick. It's um, I like Hellraiser. That's such a good movie.
uh,
Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2. The other ones are crap. But I like the whole idea of a hell priest and summoning them, and you get too much what you pay for when you call for it.
mhm,
And it's plus I mean they're in bondage like costumes that are just creepy and just
right.
yeah. Their vice in the while they were living kind of makes their outfit, kind of what they're known for, what they do, like, you know,
I know that it's been way too long. I'm gonna have to go back and look at costumes now because I
yeah,
think
oh,
I
they're
watched that when I
creepy.
was way younger.
um, let's see. Yeah, I watch horror movies like all the time. I love Psycho. Psycho's good.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Only because I love analyzing the different pieces in the film, like um, when she changes from a white slip to a black slip when she stole the money. The parents are looking out the window on a picture, on the wall. The fact that it takes place in Phoenix in December, and you're like, it's hot, but it's December, and most people like it should be cold. All these psychological things add up, and it makes you kind of on edge. But I think a lot of us are just desensitized to little things like that.
I agree. I actually, all of the Hitchcock movies, like I think my favorite of his is The Birds, actually.
Birds are
But
great.
but I watch them now and I'm like, people don't appreciate these days, and they were such incredible masterpieces at the time.
Yeah,
CGI's ruined stuff, but
yeah, I'm a big Hitchcock fan. I do love his stuff.
mm,
So you have a tattoo on your arm.
I do.
Is it? Does it have any significance?
It does. So it actually is a representation of my spiritual journey. Uh,
Oh,
so when you are in the Mormon church and you come out as gay, whether you have acted on those tendencies or not, right? Your church record is marked with an asterisk, and it means that you can't hold callings or church jobs, right, in scouts or with children. So they lump you in to the same group as those that have been convicted of child molestation.
hmm.
I didn't believe that when I first heard it, but I did have a bishop that's the like local leader of the church, who I trusted, and we had good conversations. He was a good guy. I had him confirm that that was true and that my record had an asterisk. So my scarlet letter, pretty
Mhm.
much, right? Um, but I kind of realized that it became this seed, right? That kind of sprung forth the spirituality that I do now know. So I've got kind of a structured, I didn't want it super Mormon, right? So I just did kind of that henna art stuff, right? To kind of represent structure and the seed of that structure blossoming into this thing where nothing is what it seems and where death is made up of a bunch of beautiful pieces. So, and I've got little ghosts hiding all over the place. So,
How long have you had it?
I got it 2017, I think. So 2016. Must have been 2016. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
And it's funny because now I live right down the road from the tattoo parlor that I had it done at.
Oh,
So, yeah, small world.
interesting. I hate it when people say, "Oh, I just have a tattoo. It has no meaning."
Do they ever say that? I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I know somebody who has a slice of pizza tattooed on them. I'm like, what does it mean? He's like, well, a friend just was bored and wanted to
Oh,
tattoo
yeah.
something. I'm like,
Oh,
what?
yeah. Yeah. I guess I've
Or
heard that.
I'm like, what? I can't do that. I don't have any tattoos myself. I just can't. I think if I got one, I'd hate it. I
I
just
never thought
change
that I'd be the guy.
my. Yeah. I just I thought about like a small one, just something big, And my husband, he has like a half sleeve and then like a whole sleeve.
Oh, wow.
And he had them done in DC, and I watched him. Well, I left because I wanted to walk around because I was so bored. But
Mhm.
he had his whole arm done in like 2 or 3 sittings,
Wow.
and yeah, it was. I designed some of it, just a little bit, but
Oh, nice.
I marked him. Now he's
Oh, that's so cool. So sweet.
um, but yeah, that I don't know. I think if I got one, I'd hate it. I just wouldn't like it. Even, I mean, yeah, I could get things that are significant to me tattooed on me, but I don't. There's other ways I can remember. So it's like my cousin, when my grandparents died, who adopted her, she got a monarch butterfly and a cardinal tattooed on her wrists, because my grandfather loved cardinals and my grandmother loved monarch butterflies, and they're very Virginia. They're symbols of Virginia. But I couldn't do that. I just no, not for me.
Yeah,
No.
nothing wrong with that. No, I never thought I don't like needles. I don't like getting shots. There was no way in hell, right? But then one day it felt weird. It was almost spiritual. It's like, you're gonna go get a tattoo of this journey. And I'm like, really? But,
I've never thought I'd feel right with one, or maybe get an invisible one, like you can only see it in black light or something.
like, that would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can do things like that, I guess. Um, hmm. So, um, let's see what else. Those were all the talking points. Um, how is business? How is your shop? How are things?
Oh man. Did I you maybe don't know this, but Instagram banned me, and I'm still not sure why.
What?
The last thing that I saw was that they believed I was soliciting via DMs, which we all know no legitimate person on Instagram does, right? But there are all those people that are cloning accounts and doing that. It's terrible over there. I'm not the first one this week that I know of to have run into the problem. I'm working to get it back. It's a little discouraging, but at the same time, maybe it's just a message that it's not where I should be focusing my attention. I don't know. I don't know. So
That's
that's, yeah.
huh.
So other than that, it's been really good. Like I said, I'm really busy this month. I just booked another group today.
Mhm.
I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, it's going good.
Banned from
Thanks
Insta.
for your help.
Maybe I banned you on Instagram.
Oh no,
What?
no, I'm sure.
I don't get that. Good grief. I didn't
You
know people
know,
banned like that.
the only thing I can really think of that I know that I did wrong, even though it technically fits in with the terms of service, is use my logo. Right.
But no,
But it's been that way for 3 years. So,
yeah. I mean, it's like the purity police came down and just went,
right.
no, no, no.
Somebody, a Mormon moderator. Just kidding. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Well, that's
Yeah, so I
discouraging.
don't know.
Hopefully you get it back.
Yeah. If not,
You
we'll see
went
what
through
happens.
the appeals process.
Yeah, jump through all the hoops. Made me send them all my business documents and hold a little sign and everything. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
just don't slide into anybody else's DMs.
I guess maybe that. No, that never happened either.
They think you're trafficking people or something.
Yeah, I guess.
Weird. Who knows?
Soliciting. I mean, come on, really.
There are other
Don't get me
avenues.
wrong, because I do disagree when people say, I would never send a message that says, I've got a message for you, right? I can't promise that I'll never do that. Because if you see mediums, for example, on TV, right?
Mhm.
Go up to people in the grocery store and be like, hey, I got a message for you. My mentor, who is, again, somebody who works just absolutely amazing, I asked her about that once, and she's
Mhm.
like, I don't do that. And I'm like, okay, that's good, because I don't feel like I could go do that either. And she goes, unless, she goes, sometimes the guides, angels, ancestors, whatever you want to call them, do need to interfere over something like super urgent. And she goes, and I have been occasionally prompted to give somebody a message that's super urgent. But here's the thing. If I had a super urgent message for somebody, you can bet your ass I would never say, but give me $20 to hear it. Right?
Yeah.
No.
No.
If spirit comes to me and is like, you have to do this, I'm gonna go do it. The end. Right. Yeah. But oh well.
Well, thanks. Well, hopefully you get it back. It's discouraging, but
It's
yeah,
it's all right. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Well, thank you for sitting down and talking with me again.
You're
This
very welcome
was
for
this is
having
good.
me. This was a
Yeah,
little denser, I think. I feel a
it
little.
was a little dense. Yeah, yeah. You sitting on that Victorian camelback sofa.
Oh, my mother-in-law gave me this furniture.
Oh, is that a? That's not a. Shoot, what's the painter behind you?
Oh, there's a story there too, actually. I
It's
bought
not. It's not Thomas Kincaid, is it?
No, I don't know.
Thank
It's
God.
M. Scott in the corner.
Hmm.
I bought the picture for the frame because I had
Oh.
another picture that I wanted to put in, right,
Mhm.
frame. And super secret tip, if you go to consignment shops and you buy their art, it's way cheaper than having something framed, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so I bought this, I brought it home, I hung it on the wall at the time in my spirit room to just see the size of the frame and how it fit and get the nail hole, right? And I walked back in and the picture was loaded with things. And now I can't get rid of it because it's haunted. So yeah, lots of stuff lives in the forest.
Interesting.
So I don't love the picture, but yeah,
It looks like kind of a starving artist kind of painting from what I can see.
let's see if we can.
Oh my, it's different. Yeah, it's very starving artist-esque,
Yeah,
uh, especially with the repetition of brushstrokes and all. Almost like it's a shoot, Bob Ross,
so yeah.
kind of.
It does have kind of like some really super thick textures,
Yeah,
like
it
some,
does.
yeah, that sticks off
Is,
the canvas a couple
is
inches.
is it a real painting?
Yeah, oh yeah, hmm,
Oh, huh.
yeah. If the spirits move out, I'll get rid of
Right.
it.
Well, yes, you have to give them a place to kind of. They want to be there, let them.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't. They're not harming anybody. They want to be there. Let them.
And heaven forbid I give it to somebody who gets scared of it, right? And then gets rid of the painting. That would be bad or sad. So I'm weird.
Um, yeah, but thanks for sitting down with me
Sure.
and talking about some heavier topics. It was interesting. I think there's so much to talk about, and to get someone else's opinion that, especially I appreciate yours because you're coming from this like more more spiritual place than I am. And so you're telling me things that I'm interested in and I'm learning a little bit, but also like I appreciate your thoughts on certain subjects because your background is different than mine and what you're dealing with is different. I would really love to interview people, especially gay men, that have alternate spiritual practices
Hmm.
and why they came to come to what they are now. But not everybody is willing to talk about that. So I appreciate you being open enough to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Some people, they're dealing with trauma,
Right.
not to say that we all are free of trauma, you
No,
know, we're
and
not.
definitely not. Right. Yeah.
But some people, it's just not comfortable, for them to come out and talk about where they are now or how they
Hmm.
got there because
Right.
there's too much stuff in the background.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, I can give you some other people who would be willing to talk to you if you would like.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right.
I mean, I enjoy interviewing people, but yeah, it's been nice interviewing you
Thank
and
you.
talking with you
Yeah,
and
it's
getting
been
to know you
fun.
a little better. Yeah.
Right back at you. Yeah.
Be sure to check out tarotfellow.com to shop for all your spiritual needs, as well as book readings and other services with Rick.